There is something happening inside your body right now that most people never think about. A slow, invisible process is running in the background, quietly shaping your energy levels, your mood, your weight, your skin, and even the way your brain functions. It is not a disease. It is not something your doctor will flag in a routine checkup, but it is happening to nearly every adult in the modern world, and it begins the moment you take your first bite of refined sugar in the morning. The question is not whether sugar is bad for you. You already know the answer. The real question is what actually happens to your body when you remove it completely for 30 straight days, and what your biology looks like when it finally gets the chance to reset itself from the inside out. Welcome to Vital 3D World, where we take you beneath the skin and inside the human body to show you what your biology really looks like in action. Today, we are going on a 30-day journey inside your physiology. You will see what happens at the cellular level, at the hormonal level, and at the neurological level when refined sugar leaves your system entirely. And by the end of this video, you will understand why ancient cultures who never had access to processed sugar had metabolic profiles that modern medicine now considers nearly perfect by today's standards. Before we go any further, if this kind of deep internal journey is what you are looking for, go ahead and like this video right now and subscribe to Vital 3D World with the bell icon turned on. We release new episodes that take you inside the human body in ways you have never seen before, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Now, let us begin at the very beginning. Let us talk about what sugar is actually doing inside you right before you decide to stop eating it. Every time you consume refined sugar, whether it is in a soft drink, a piece of bread, a flavored yogurt, a sports drink, or a dessert, your digestive system breaks it down rapidly into glucose. That glucose enters your bloodstream, and your blood sugar levels rise quickly. Your pancreas, a long glandular organ sitting just behind your stomach, detects this spike and immediately releases a hormone called insulin. Insulin is often described simply as a blood sugar regulator, but that is a dramatic understatement of what it actually does. Insulin is a master key. It unlocks the doors of your cells so that glucose can enter and be used as fuel. Without insulin, glucose cannot get inside your cells no matter how much of it is circulating in your blood. This system is elegant, precise, and ancient. It evolved over millions of years in an environment where sugar was rare, seasonal, and always came packaged inside a whole food, like a piece of fruit or a root vegetable. The problem that modern humans face is that we have taken that rare, seasonal sugar and made it available 24 hours a day, in massive quantities, stripped of all the fiber and nutrients that would normally slow its absorption. The result is a biological mismatch that has been building inside hundreds of millions of people for decades. Here is what happens when you eat refined sugar repeatedly throughout the day, every day. Your insulin levels stay chronically elevated, and when insulin is always present, your cells begin to react the way anyone reacts when they are constantly overwhelmed. They start to ignore the signal. They become desensitized. Your cells literally begin to reduce the number of insulin receptors on their surface because the constant bombardment of insulin starts to feel like noise rather than useful information. This is called insulin resistance, and it is one of the most consequential metabolic conditions a human body can develop. It sits at the root of type 2 diabetes, obesity, fatty liver disease, polycystic ovary syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and even certain cognitive disorders that researchers are beginning to call type 3 diabetes. Now here is where our 30-day experiment begins. On day 1, when you remove refined sugar from your diet entirely, something very specific starts to happen in your bloodstream. Within the first 24 hours, your glucose intake drops sharply. Your blood sugar levels begin to stabilize. Your pancreas no longer needs to pump out the same high volumes of insulin it has been producing. Insulin levels start to fall. And for the first time in possibly years, your cells begin to experience something they may not have felt in a long time. Quiet, a period of low insulin signal that tells them they are not under constant metabolic pressure. This transition is not always comfortable. Many people report what feels like withdrawal symptoms during the first 3 to 7 days of eliminating sugar. Headaches, fatigue, irritability, cravings, difficulty concentrating, and even mild mood swings. These symptoms are real and they are biological, not imaginary. Part of what is happening is that sugar, particularly in the quantities most people consume it, activates the dopaminergic reward pathways in the brain in ways that share neurological similarities with certain addictive substances. When that stimulation is suddenly removed, your brain has to recalibrate. It has become used to regular dopamine hits from sugar consumption, and when those hits stop coming, the brain registers something resembling deficit. Ancient cultures understood this recalibration period intuitively, even without the vocabulary of modern neuroscience. Across many traditional healing systems, from Ayurveda in South Asia to traditional Chinese medicine to the fasting practices of early Mediterranean cultures, there was a consistent understanding that removing sweet foods from the diet for a defined period was a form of internal cleansing. These traditions framed it in spiritual or energetic terms, but what they were observing empirically was metabolic and neurological recalibration. They were watching the body go through exactly what modern physiology now describes. By the end of the first week, something significant begins to shift. As insulin levels continue to fall, the body starts looking for an alternative fuel source. It turns to a process called gluconeogenesis, where the liver begins synthesizing glucose from non-sugar sources like amino acids and glycerol. Simultaneously, as glycogen stores in the liver and muscles are depleted, the body begins increasing its reliance on stored body fat for energy. Fatty acids are mobilized from adipose tissue and transported to the liver, where they are converted into molecules called ketone bodies. Even if you are not following a strict ketogenic diet, cutting out refined sugar alone moves your metabolism significantly in the direction of fat oxidation. You begin burning more of what you have stored and less of what you are eating. Now let us look at what is happening to your insulin receptors during this same period. As insulin levels drop and remain lower, your cells gradually begin to upregulate their sensitivity to insulin again. New insulin receptors begin to appear on the surface of muscle cells, liver cells, and fat cells. The signal that insulin sends starts to be received more clearly. Think of it as a conversation that had become a shouting match returning to a calm, normal speaking voice. Your body can now do more with less insulin. It takes a smaller amount of the hormone to move glucose into cells efficiently. This improvement in insulin sensitivity, which measurably begins within the first week and deepens significantly by the end of the third week, is one of the most powerful metabolic changes your body can undergo. It is not just about blood sugar. When insulin sensitivity improves, everything downstream of it improves too. Your energy regulation becomes more stable. You stop experiencing the dramatic blood sugar crashes that cause the afternoon fatigue and the desperate craving for something sweet or caffeinated. Your body becomes more efficient at the most fundamental biological task it performs, which is converting food into usable cellular energy. By the end of the second week, many people begin to notice changes in areas they did not expect. Skin begins to clear. This is not a coincidence. Elevated insulin stimulates a growth factor called IGF-1, and together, insulin and IGF-1 increase the production of sebum, the oily substance produced by sebaceous glands in the skin. Excess sebum production is one of the primary drivers of clogged pores and acne. When insulin levels fall and stabilize, sebum production normalizes, and the inflammatory processes in the skin that cause redness and breakouts begin to calm down. Ancient Ayurvedic texts specifically identified sweet foods as a driver of skin inflammation and recommended periods of avoidance for people suffering from skin conditions. They did not know about IGF-1, but they were observing its effects. Inside the gut, changes are also underway. The microbiome, the vast community of bacteria living in your digestive tract, begins to shift in composition. Refined sugar feeds certain species of bacteria and yeast that thrive in a high-glucose environment. Certain species of candida, for example, are known to proliferate in people who consume high amounts of sugar. When sugar is removed, these populations begin to decline. Meanwhile, species that produce beneficial short-chain fatty acids, like butyrate, begin to have more ecological space to flourish. Butyrate is a critical nutrient for the cells lining your intestinal wall. It strengthens the gut barrier, reduces intestinal permeability, and has significant anti-inflammatory effects that extend throughout the body. Let us go inside the liver for a moment, because what is happening there during your 30-day reset is remarkable. The liver is the primary metabolic processing center of your body and is deeply affected by sugar consumption in ways that most people are entirely unaware of. Specifically, fructose, the other half of sucrose along with glucose, is processed almost entirely by the liver. Unlike glucose, which can be taken up by cells throughout the body, fructose must be metabolized hepatically. When fructose arrives at the liver in large quantities, as it does when you drink a sugary beverage or eat a processed food, sweetened with high fructose corn syrup, the liver converts a significant portion of it into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis. This is how non-alcoholic fatty liver disease develops. The liver becomes clogged with fat droplets that impair its ability to perform its hundreds of other critical functions. When you remove refined sugar for 30 days, de novo lipogenesis slows dramatically. The liver begins to clear the accumulated fat. Hepatic insulin resistance, which often accompanies fatty liver, begins to improve. The liver can perform its detoxification functions more efficiently. Inflammation within hepatic tissue begins to resolve. These changes are not visible from the outside, but they are profound and they have long-range consequences for your metabolic health that extend over years and decades. Now let us talk about what is happening in your brain, because the neurological changes of a 30-day sugar reset are among the most striking and, for many people, the most unexpected. The human brain accounts for roughly 2% of body weight, but consumes approximately 20% of total energy. Historically, the brain was adapted to run primarily on glucose, but the brain is also highly capable of running on ketone bodies, and many researchers now believe that a degree of metabolic flexibility, the ability to shift between glucose and ketones as primary fuel, is associated with improved cognitive resilience and neuroprotective effects. During your sugar reset, as insulin sensitivity improves and fat oxidation increases, more ketone bodies become available to the brain. Many people report, particularly in weeks 3 and 4, a quality of mental clarity and sustained focus that they describe as feeling different from their normal state. Not stimulated, not caffeinated, but genuinely clearer. This likely reflects a combination of stable blood glucose, reduced neuroinflammation, and the brain's utilization of a more stable and efficiently oxidized fuel source. The reduction in neuroinflammation is worth dwelling on for a moment. Chronic high blood sugar and the resulting glycation of proteins and lipids in the body contribute to systemic inflammation. This inflammatory state affects the brain just as it affects other tissues. Microglial cells, the immune cells of the brain, are activated by systemic inflammation and contribute to a low-grade neuroinflammatory state that is associated with brain fog, reduced processing speed, and over longer time frames, increased risk of neurodegenerative conditions. When blood sugar stabilizes and systemic inflammation falls, microglial activity normalizes and brain function clears. Traditional healing wisdom from multiple cultures has long associated mental clarity with periods of dietary simplicity and the avoidance of sweet and heavy foods. What we can now say is that this was not mysticism. It was empirical observation of a neurobiological reality. The brain works better when the metabolic environment it sits within is stable, low in inflammation, and hormonally balanced. At the cardiovascular level, significant changes are also occurring throughout your 30-day reset. Elevated triglycerides, which are a major cardiovascular risk factor, are directly linked to high sugar intake. When you consume more carbohydrates than your body can store as glycogen, the excess is converted to triglycerides in the liver and released into circulation. As sugar consumption falls, triglyceride levels can drop measurably within just a few weeks. Simultaneously, HDL cholesterol, often called the beneficial form of cholesterol because of its role in reverse cholesterol transport, tends to rise as dietary sugar decreases and fat metabolism increases. Blood pressure often improves as well, partly because of reduced fluid retention, partly because of the normalization of insulin-driven sodium reabsorption in the kidneys, and partly because of reduced arterial inflammation. By day 30, you are looking at a fundamentally different internal landscape. Your insulin sensitivity has improved. Your triglycerides have fallen. Your liver is less burdened. Your gut microbiome has shifted toward a more favorable composition. Your skin has calmed. Your brain inflammation has reduced. Your energy is more stable. Your body fat oxidation has increased. and your dopamine system, which was previously driven to seek quick sugar rewards, has recalibrated toward a more stable baseline. This is where Vital 3D World wants to give you the core takeaways that matter most, and we want to repeat them clearly because they deserve to be heard more than once. The first vital insight is this: insulin resistance is not a condition that develops overnight, and it does not resolve overnight, but it does respond measurably and meaningfully to even a 30-day period of dietary change. Your cells are not permanently damaged. They are adaptable. Given the right conditions, they restore their sensitivity, their efficiency, and their communication with the hormonal systems that regulate them. The second vital insight: sugar does not just affect your waistline. It affects your liver, your brain, your skin, your cardiovascular system, your gut, and your sleep quality. When people report feeling dramatically better after removing refined sugar, they are not exaggerating and they are not imagining it. They are experiencing the cumulative effect of multiple biological systems returning to a more optimal state simultaneously. The third vital insight, and this one connects modern biochemistry to thousands of years of human wisdom. Ancient health traditions across the world identified the avoidance of excessive sweet foods as a pathway to clarity, vitality, and longevity. They did not have the tools to measure insulin receptors or microglial activation, but they were observing, with great precision, the same physiological reality that modern science is now mapping at the molecular level. The body's wisdom and the accumulated wisdom of traditional cultures point in exactly the same direction. Now, you may be wondering what this 30-day reset actually looks like in practice. What does it mean to remove refined sugar? It means eliminating added sugars in their processed forms. Soft drinks, fruit juices, candies, pastries, most packaged snacks, breakfast cereals, flavored yogurts, sauces and condiments with added sugar, and any food where sugar, corn syrup, or any of its many aliases appear on the ingredient label. It does not mean eliminating all carbohydrates or all natural foods that contain sugars. Whole fruits, for example, come packaged with fiber, water, vitamins, and polyphenol that fundamentally alter how their natural sugar is absorbed and metabolized. A piece of whole fruit is physiologically nothing like a glass of fruit juice or a candy bar, even if their sugar content looks similar on paper. The goal is to remove the processed, concentrated, rapidly absorbed forms of sugar and replace them with nothing, or with whole foods that support metabolic stability rather than undermine it. Foods rich in protein, healthy fats, fiber, and complex carbohydrates from sources like legumes, vegetables, and whole grains provide steady energy without triggering the rapid insulin spikes that drive the cascade of metabolic dysfunction we have been describing. Ancient eating patterns, from traditional Mediterranean diets to traditional Asian diets to indigenous diets across the world, consistently shared one characteristic: they contained almost no refined sugar. They were rich in fermented foods, whole plant foods, quality proteins, and healthy fats. And the populations following these patterns had rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic syndrome that were a fraction of what modern populations experience today. The 30-day sugar reset is not a trend. It is a return, a deliberate return to the metabolic conditions that human biology was designed to operate within. Before we close, let's take one more look at what your body looks like on day 30 compared to day 1. On day 1, your insulin receptors are down-regulated and sluggish. Your liver is processing excess fructose into fat. Your gut microbiome is skewed toward sugar-feeding bacteria. Your triglycerides are elevated. Your brain is riding a dopamine cycle tied to sugar reward. Your skin is dealing with excess sebum and inflammation. Your energy fluctuates in waves tied to blood sugar highs and crashes. On day 30, your insulin receptors have begun to regenerate. Your liver has reduced de novo lipogenesis and begun clearing accumulated hepatic fat. Your gut microbiome has shifted toward butyrate-producing species that strengthen your intestinal lining. Your triglycerides have measurably decreased. Your brain has recalibrated its dopamine baseline and is experiencing more stable fuel delivery. Your skin is producing less inflammatory sebum. Your energy is stable, sustained, and no longer dependent on the next sugar hit to maintain itself. This is what a biological reset looks like from the inside. And this is what Vital 3D World exists to show you, not just as abstract information, but as a living, breathing, three-dimensional understanding of your own body and what it is capable of when given what it needs. If someone in your life is struggling with energy crashes, skin issues, brain fog, unexplained weight gain, or blood sugar concerns, share this video with them. This may be exactly the explanation they have been looking for. And we would love to know, have you ever tried eliminating sugar for an extended period? What did you notice? Drop your experience in the comments below, because the most valuable insights often come from people who have lived it, and your experience could be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Thank you for taking this journey inside the human body with us today. The biology we explored together is not theoretical. It is running inside you right now, responding to every choice you make. And the more clearly you understand it, the more powerfully you can work with it. Keep exploring, keep asking, and we will see you inside the next one.